Mark, were you surprised, first of all, that it got as much traction as it did? And are you even more surprised that you were made out to be the bad guy who snitched on an ex-teammate rather than the guy who did something bad?
Not at all. Yeah, I'm not surprised because there's still a certain percentage of people that think steroids are okay and think that steroids aren't cheating. So, I'm not going to convince those people that that I'm right, and that's really not what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to say, in my mind and in my heart, I think steroids are wrong. And also, there's plenty of guys on the internet that are just looking for clickbait and any chance you can get, two teammates or two stars or an ex-star or whatever to say something. They're gonna try to get some clickbait out of it. So I wasn't surprised at all, Michael.
And also, people are lazy, Mark, because listening to the interview, being a part of it last week, you gave a genuine answer to the question, and you outlined why you weren't surprised, which is the same reason I'm not surprised, Michael's not surprised, and all of baseball is not really surprised. But people hear that, half hear it, or they take just a headline and think you weren't surprised because you saw something. You told some sort of tale out of school. You're just a person that gave his opinion based not as a former player, but it's just as somebody that observes the game the same way we did. Wouldn't that be correct?
Exactly. And that's, I think that everybody that really understands the situation and anybody that has a level head understands exactly what I said. Nobody that had been paying attention to this story over the past 5 years was surprised. Listen, the last week I've spoken to 2 different groups, families and kids, and I get asked this every single time I talk because I have to either defend myself or defend clean players or whatever, and I'm not going to apologize for speaking out against steroids. The Major League Baseball Players Union, Major League Baseball itself, the federal government has all said that steroids are wrong and we shouldn't be allowing steroids in sports and for our kids. And I'm going to stand with those people and say they are wrong, and I'm going to stand up against it.
Do you believe, and this is a lot of the pushback that you got from the comment, do you believe that you betrayed an ex-teammate, the trust of an ex-teammate by saying that?
That is why this is so divisive, Michael. That's why this steroid issue is so divisive, because it pits teammates against each other. So as a current player, you can't go out and talk terrible about a teammate, or you can't go out and say, steroids are so bad. I mean, look at what Justin Verlander got caught up in. You defended Johnny Coulter was your buddy. Now that it's a guy that's in your division, now you're against it. It is a very divisive issue inside of the clubhouse because there are some guys that either have done it or have gotten suspended or whatever that are on one side, and then there's the clean players on the other side, and it creates friction. Now, I work for ESPN. I didn't call the Michael K show and say, "Hey, everybody, listen to what I have to say as a former player." I work for ESPN. I have to say the truth. I have to say exactly what's on my mind. And when ESPN hired me, they said, if you have a current or former teammate that gets into trouble, are you going to be able to be objective? I said, absolutely. I will be objective no matter what the situation, steroids included.
And we know the unwritten rules. Remember, Joe Torre got a lot of abuse for his book because of tales he told, supposedly out of school, outside the locker room. But is that something you had to wrestle with when you made the decision to join the media, that I'm going to have to maybe be a little bit more out there as opposed to other former players because I have to do my job?
No doubt, Don. And I think there's a big difference between sharing secrets. There's no secrets being shared here, guys. I was asked a question. Michael, you asked a very fair question. I'm glad you asked it. You should have asked it. You're doing your job. You asked the question. I'm doing my job. I answered it. No one was surprised here that understood what was happening and the history of biogenesis. So it is a little silly that you have these reactions. But, again, I'm not surprised because it's entertainment.
Now, in the lead up to you coming on at the top of the hour, Tiki and Tierney, a show on the CBS National Radio Network, they had on CC Sabathia today. And Sabathia was asked about you, saying that you're not surprised by Cano's suspension. And this is what Sabathia said. I don't want to get into what Tex said, but I'll just put it like this. I'm not surprised he said that coming from him. What the heck does that mean?
That means that I'm very outspoken, guys. I've had plenty of run-ins with teammates or with media standing up for things that maybe I believe in. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong, and my guess is CC knows that about me. I played with him for 8 years. He knows that I'll speak my mind. And whether you think I'm right or wrong, that's your prerogative. But I am going to say what's on my mind, especially working for ESPN. I have to. ESPN would fire me tomorrow if I just said no comment to every maybe tough question.
Do you believe, and Don and I were talking about this, wondering what CC meant. I mean, I don't mean to insult you. Were you not liked in that clubhouse? I mean, could it be taken that way?
I hope not. I mean, if you don't like me because I stand up against steroids, then hey, that's your prerogative. I mean, there are certain things that I can't control, and I always try to play hard. I always try to treat my teammates with respect. Did I stand up against certain things that I didn't like in the clubhouse? Absolutely. Will a lot of those things stay quiet? Yeah. But steroids is a public thing that many times I had to say what I believed. And, again, I'm not going to apologize for that.
Do you believe because you're an outspoken player, and it's all in the eye of the beholder, Mark, right? But do you think because you were outspoken that there were teammates that felt you were not a good teammate because you were so outspoken?
Absolutely. That is why, again, that's why this is so divisive, guys. The easy thing to do for every major leaguer that plays 162 games and grinds it out is to stay quiet. Put your blinders on. Don't say a word. No matter what the situation is, just put your blinders on and go out and do your job. That really wasn't me. I mean, I had to stand up for certain things. I was a part of the union for 14 years, on the executive committee for maybe 8 years. I was in those tough meetings when we were talking about the Mitchell report. I was in those tough meetings when we were talking about how do we decide what to do with these players. And there was a whole group of guys, maybe from a generation a little bit before me, that said, you're throwing these guys under the bus. You're a terrible teammate because you're outing these guys, and everyone was doing it, and this is terrible. And in those meetings, I stood up and said, guys, is it right or is it wrong? And if it's wrong, I'm going to have to say it's wrong.
Question before we let this go. You mentioned Cano last week. You mentioned Melky, and you mentioned Alex. Did you hear from any of those three after your words?
No, I talked to Alex when we had our ESPN Sunday night game, and he understands. He gets it that the context. I work for ESPN. The context of what I said. You got to talk about biogenesis. Alex says, he's multiple times he's apologized for what he did. He knows that he made mistakes, and I think everyone can kind of move on.
The Yankees have just an amazing amount of talent. They just showed the AAA affiliate in Scranton starting lineup the other day, where the first 4 or 5 are guys that played for the Yankees this year.
Right, and could play for a lot of teams.
And they can play for most of the teams in Major League Baseball. Whether it's Drury, whether it's Austin. I mean, there's guys that are sitting on the bench or down in the minor leagues that should be playing in the major leagues. Should the Yankees worry about how they feel about it? Should they worry about the bitterness or the dissension that might be created because there's no room for them on the roster?
It's tough, guys. It's a high-class problem to have too much talent at AAA. But I think every player that signs with the Yankees, especially this season, understood that you were going to have to fight for at-bats. And when Greg Bird comes back, there are going to be guys fighting for at-bats. So while this is a good problem to have for the Yankees management and for Yankees fans, yeah, of course, it's tough for these players. I mean, this is their livelihood. And you have guys battling for positions, some guys in AAA that think they should be in the big leagues, and some guys on the bench in the big leagues that think they should be starting. But it's all healthy competition, I think, in the end.
Did anything that happened in the Texas series send up any alarms for you about this Yankee team?
I want to think this is a blip on the radar. Listen, the bullpen is not full strength. I think, Jamon probably isn't going to be a long-time starter, once Montgomery comes back. And Tanaka, I got to feel like Tanaka's going to get better. I feel like early in the season, he kind of has always had these early struggles. And then once he gets into his rhythm, really gets a feel for his fastball and his splitter and how they can work together, he settles down. So I don't like the fact that Tanaka and Gray both have, ERAs around 5. but I want to think because of their talent, they'll get better.
You think Batista can help the Mets?
Why not? He's one of those guys, you bring him in, maybe creates a little bit of a fire, some of that healthy competition I was talking about with the guys on the Mets. Their offense has been struggling. And I think a guy like Batista that has obviously shown that he can do it in the big leagues, at best it's lightning in a bottle, and he goes out and hits some home runs and plays good defense for you. And at the very least, it creates some competition, and guys realize they have to step up. Their at-bats are not guaranteed.
Talk with Mark Teixeira's weekly segment on the Michael Kay Show. Let me lay this out for you, Mark. I don't want to get you upset, but let me lay it out. You really took care of yourself your entire career. The end, you weren't even eating gluten. I felt sorry for you. You were committed to being in shape and going out there and doing what you had to do. You cared for your body because your body was your product. And today, Bartolo Colon turns 45, a guy who puts whatever he wants into his system. He's still playing. You're a broadcaster. How bitter are you?
I'm not bitter at all. Bartolo is so funny. He's one of the very few pitchers that is actually looser on days that he pitches. And I don't know if it's on purpose, but he's in the dugout in the middle of a game, laughing with guys, joking around, throwing his ball up, his weighted ball that he has around all the time. One of the craziest things, because most pitchers really lock in. Don't talk to me on game day. When I'm pitching, I got the ball. I don't want to talk to anybody. And Bartolo is the absolute opposite. He's just a joy to watch play the game.
No, you didn't.
Does it amaze you that he's still pitching at 45 and pitching effectively?
And I think great pitchers, guys that understand how to pitch, not how to throw, how to pitch. The Jamie Moyer pitched to his late 40s. I think these guys can do it. I think Greg Maddux probably could still pitch if he wanted to. Mariano Rivera could still pitch if he wanted to. It's just a matter of how much you want to. And obviously, Bartolo still has that fire, and he enjoys it at 45.
Now, he wasn't a teammate for a ton of time with you, but do you have any stories about him?
Just like I was talking about, I mean, he would have these games where he's pitching a great game. It's 2-1 in the seventh, and he's telling jokes. While he's pitching, he's on the bench joking around with guys. And I'm a nervous wreck. I'm locked in. I'm trying to really focus on what's going on out there. And my starting pitcher, who's got the game in his hands, is having a blast. And maybe we can learn something from that.
Gleyber Torres has been amazing. He has 8 home runs now. He was always thought to be a star in the making. But, Mark, watching him the way you've watched him, do you believe that this guy could be a legitimate superstar in this league for a long time? Does he have that sort of talent?
Of course. I think Theo Epstein said, we knew that we traded away a star when we got Chapman at the deadline. But it was worth it winning a World Series. I think Gleyber Torres has as much, if not more, talent than anyone on the Yankees roster currently. And if you look at all the young players in baseball talent-wise, he looks like Mike Trout, guys. He's strong, he's fast, he's got incredible power, but yet he's got this really short swing that is direct to the ball. It's really special to watch him play right now. There's a few guys in the Yankees that when the game's on at the house, I make sure I sit in my chair or stop what I'm doing to watch. He's one of them right now.
We're going to miss out on Ohtani and Tanaka this weekend because Scioscia wants to kind of manage his starts with the Angels. Michael and I speculated that it might be a long game for Scioscia where he doesn't want Ohtani to face the Yankees because if he has to face them in the wild card, he may see an advantage of the Yankees having never faced him. Would a manager think that far ahead?
Absolutely. And the GMs think about that as well. I think there's a lot of things. One of it is you're going to go into Yankee Stadium against Tanaka. All of the noise around that, all of the extra hype and extra media attention around that, they might have just sat down together and said, guys, we're not going to let our young superstar in his first year go through that. Let's just push him back a day. It'll rest him. The Yankees won't see him for later in the season. And, he won't have to deal with the hoopla of pitching against Tanaka in New York. So I think all of those went into the decision.
All right, a couple of text messages before we let you go. Mo in Brooklyn says, will they play Brandon Drury in left field at all? I think he played 60-something games there last year.
I think everything's on the table right now, guys. Once Greg Bird comes back, we are going to have some serious roster questions. And because of the way the bullpens are deployed nowadays, it's very difficult to take a guy out of the bullpen just to carry an extra fielder. So I don't know. I've tried to look at this roster up and down and try to figure out who doesn't fit. I can make a case for Drury and Walker and Austin and all these guys staying on the team because they deserve at-bats, but there's only so many to go around.
Aaron from Passaic asked, Mark, if the Yankees don't win the World Series, is this season a bust?
I think bust is harsh. Disappointing, absolutely. It's tough to say it's a bust because you have three really good teams just in the American League, in the Red Sox, Yankees, and Astros. One of those teams is not making it to the World Series. Or two of those teams, sorry. Maybe all of them. Okay? So if you get all the way to the ALCS and face a really good Astros team and those pitchers just lock you down and you lose in Game 7, is the season a bust? Probably not a bust. Maybe disappointment. But I don't think you want to use the word bust.
Mike from Northville, New Jersey asked, there were times you may have been slumping and the press said negative comments about you. Did you care?
I cared when I got personal. If somebody in the press said he's slumping because and made something up, they're like, yeah, like that's not true. Why'd you say that? But, when Michael Kay was on the Yes Network saying, Mark Scheer's 0 for 15, and he really looks bad at the plate right now. Well, guess what? Mark Scheer's 0 for 15, he really looks bad at the plate right now. You're just saying the truth. And, and I don't create this big hoopla because somebody in the media or the broadcaster just says how I'm playing. But I think when guys get personal or try to take cheap shots, that's when it goes over the line.
And finally, watching, although he hit a home run yesterday, are you shocked that you could have a month like Didi had in April and then be as bad as he's been in May?
Yeah, this is one of those anomalies. Stuff like this doesn't happen. He hits some balls hard, and then after he hits some balls hard, he starts pressing, starts expanding the zone, and it's kind of a snowball effect. Didi is one of the best players in baseball. He is going to be fine. He was a player of the month in April. He's had a really tough 3 weeks in May. I am not worried about Didi Gregorius at all.
Good stuff, Mark. Thank you as always.
All right, guys. Always fun.